There's this quote from I think a Batman movie which says you either die a hero or live long enough to be regarded as a villain, and that has been the basic law of human nature. But that quote have always been proven to be true in the continent of Africa by the leaders who run it. Like, people forget that the great Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, the man who fought against imperialism and was propelling for Pan-Africanism, was regarded as a hero by the people. But when he was ousted from office years later, there was a massive celebration from the same people thanking God for freeing them from a villain. And this is actually still seen in Libya with Muammar Gaddafi. Even though he's technically regarded as a psychopathic villain by the West, we still can't change the fact that at some point during his tenure, Libya experienced huge economic growth, relative peace and security, and a very great standard of living. But when we make mention or name stereotypical African leaders who led their country into a period of economic growth and relative peace, but overstayed their welcome and flopped, there is no better person in mind for me than the great Kenneth Kaale of Zambia. The only difference was that he rose, he fell, and he rose again to become an elder statesman and redeem himself. So guys, join me as we take a big look into the life, the accomplishments, and the failures of one of the greatest African leaders to ever rule post-colonial Africa, Kenneth Kaale of Zambia. So guys, if you've not liked this video, like this video and subscribe. If you've not liked this video, like this video and subscribe, because it don't hurt you if you do, but it would actually hurt me if you don't. So please, like I said, like this video and subscribe, like this video and subscribe, and let's get right into the video. Kenneth David Kaale was born on Monday, the 28th of April 1924 at Chisali, northern Rhodesia, now Zambia, and was the youngest of 8 children of Reverend David Kaale and his wife Helen Kaale, who was originally from Nyasaland, now modern-day Malawi. Kaale was educated at Lombwa Church of Scotland Mission School and then Mulani School in Lusaka, which was technically the premium secondary school for Africans in Northern Rhodesia as of the time. In 1943, he began teaching at Lombwa Mission School and spent some time teaching in Tanganyika, which is now modern-day Tanzania, before returning to Zambia to head his old school in 1947. After resigning his position as the head of his school in Lumbwa, he became a senior interpreter to Sir Stewart Gore Brown, a liberal and a member of the Northern Rhodesian Legislative Council. He dived into the political arena in the early 50s, where he was involved in the Northern Rhodesian African National Congress (ANC), which was the first leading pro-independent organization in Northern Rhodesia. Kaale was one of the founding members of the ANC, and he later became the group general secretary under the ANC president nkumbula between 1953 to 1958. And on many occasions, Kaale and Nkumbula were imprisoned based on their undying fight for independence. But none of this intimidation technique could deter the resolute mind of Kaale and many Northern Rhodesian ANC leaders. But Kenneth Kaale and Nkumbula drifted apart as Nkumbula became increasingly influenced by the white liberals as he started to compromise the core value for the struggle for independence. Nkumbula's autocratic rule led to their eventual split as Kenneth Kaale went on to form a new party, the Zambian African National Congress, the ZANC, on October 1958. The ZANC party was banned as a result of an upsurge in civil disobedience, and Kenneth Kaale spent 9 months in prison as punishment for spearheading it, first in Lusaka, Zambia, then in Salabari, now Harare, modern-day Zimbabwe. In 1960, he became the president of the newly formed United National Independent Party (UNIP), which was technically an offshoot of the ZANC and other breakaway factions of the ACN, spearheaded by Manza Chanaf, who abdicated on the release of Kaale from prison. In 1964, Kenneth Kaale won the general election, beating Nkumbula and the ACN, and his UNIP party winning 55 out of the possible 75 seats in parliament. Kenneth Kaale became the first president of Zambia, ushering Zambia into a new chapter. In as much as we modern day people always try to show our good side, it's always important to know that all roses, as beautiful as they may be, have thorns. And everybody have a dark side despite the perfect image we try to portray or try to radiate. And Kenneth Kaunda is no exception. Even the great Martin Luther King, the Gandhi, the Mother Teresa have flaws. So why can't he? Anyway, it's important to know that Kenneth Kaunda regime kicked up with great hope and enthusiasm. So let's start with the greatest accomplishment, because as of the time of Zambia independence in 1964, the country had a total number of 109 university graduates. And what's more depressing was the fact that less than 0.5% of the population completed primary education. Seeing the current state of destitution of his country and understanding that education can play a huge role in uplifting his nation from that state of destitution, he instituted a policy where all children, irrespective of their parents' ability to pay for their school fees, were given free books, pencils, and making their parents only responsible for buying them uniforms and paying a very small token fee. In 1966, 2 years after coming into office, the University of Zambia was opened in Lusaka. After most Zambians donated whatever they could to aid in its construction, he also established more tertiary level institutions during his time, like the Copper Belt University in 1988. In terms of the economy, I would say he really helped the country during the first few years of his tenure, but failed woefully after that. Let me explain. You see, Zambia's economy was largely and solely controlled by the white Africans and their foreign counterparts. But he managed to get the British South African Company, for example, to assign its mineral rights back to the incoming Zambian government, which was a very huge accomplishment. And under him, he created the Transitional and First National Development Plan, which started from 1966 to 1971, which was generally regarded as a success. But his subsequent national plans failed woefully. In 1975, as a result of rising oil price and declining copper price, the Zambia economy was in shambles, as the government had solely put their eggs into one basket, and as a result of this, the Zambia economy went into decline. And by the mid-80s, Zambia was one of the most indebted nations in the world relative to their GDP. As a result of the increasing hardship based on the fall of the copper price, Kenneth Kaunda tried removing the food subsidy, which led to the mass protests and anger from his people. And at this point, his days was numbered, even more noticeably when the USSR, which was his lifesaver and one of his main aides, broke apart in 1991. Kaunda tried winning the hearts of his people by creating certain policies and reform, like bringing the country back into a multi-party democracy. But by that time, the deed has already been done, as it was too late for him to prevent his fall from power, as massive pressure was already on him for him to resign and create a multi-party democracy. But let's face it, Kenneth Kaunda was a very, very good leader, a very good activist, but a terrible economist and a strategist. Like I said earlier before, he was a terrible economist, but he also failed well in most of his foreign policies. Like, he allowed several African liberation fronts to pitch their camp in Zambia, such as the ZAPU, the ZANU, and the South African ACN. He was also a leading voice among other African leaders in the fight against the apartheid movement in South Africa. He maintained warm relationship with China and Tito of Yugoslavia, but also had a sore relationship between Ronald Reagan and the UK Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, and the reason was based on their blind eye towards the injustice being committed in the apartheid South African regime as of the time. During the course of my research, it's very important to note that Kenneth Kaunda was one of the first head of state or African head of states to recognize Biafra as a sovereign nation. I just said I should put it out there because it's very important to note. Also, people tend to forget Kenneth Kaunda as one of the leading African leaders to fight against apartheid during that era. Like, everybody just mention Nelson Mandela, but they forget to mention Kenneth Kaunda, which is actually very wrong. So I just said I should put this here before we transit to his fall from power. Like I said earlier before, as a result of mounting pressure due to his economic incompetence, Kaunda was forced to conduct election in a multi-party state, which he did but lost to Frederick Chuluba in 1991. But what made Kenneth Kaunda unique was the fact that he gracefully stood down and took the L, even though he tried recontesting in the 1996 general election. But for the fact that he took the L as like a man, like a champ, like it's just really amazing. So yep, it's just really amazing. After being accused of organizing a failed military coup in 1997, he retired from the public eye and politics and became more involved in various charitable activism, notably his fight against HIV/AIDS epidemic ravaging Africa and using his elder statesman status to preach for peace. Well, sadly, he died on June 17, 2021 at age 97 in Lusaka, Zambia. Well, most people see Kenneth Kaunda as a misguided socialist revolutionary. Most people see him as an autocratic ruler with his one-party state Zambia. But to me, I see him as a human being. I see him as a black man who meant well for his people. And I see him as a standing pillar to the foundation of the modern-day African society because of his love for his people and his opposition to the apartheid movement in South Africa and his foreign policies in Africa. Well guys, I'm all out, and if you've come this far, please, I really appreciate you and I really thank you for sticking with me to the end of this video. So please, if you've not liked this video, like this video and subscribe. If you've not liked this video, like this video and subscribe, because it won't hurt you if you do, but it actually hurts me if you don't. So like I said earlier before, please like this video and subscribe. Thank you for sticking with me to the end of this video. I really appreciate. See you in the next video. Like I said, I really appreciate. Thank you. Peace out. Love you guys.